because you're a gallery owner to another gallery owner. But if you're an artist to a gallery owner, they may not even respond to you or take you seriously. So you really have to be more than just a painter. You could be a painter, but that doesn't make you an artist.
Hello and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg. In the show, I interview innovative peak performers. I talk with entrepreneurs, business owners, and creatives who are pushing the envelope to work creatively and authentically. We explore how to cultivate innovative genius to achieve our visions to succeed. This week's show is brought to you by my book, Speak From Within. If you need to communicate better and leave your listeners riveted, you'll want to check the book out. And now, let's get to it. Hello, and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg, and I am super thrilled you're here. I'm also incredibly delighted to introduce you to this week's guest. Now, what's interesting about the bio that I'm about to read for you is that this person didn't even talk about himself. He talked about his organization. He talked about his business as part of the introduction, because I think this is so central to who Mark West is, that is almost the most important thing. So let me talk about the Mark West Center for the Arts. It's also known as House of Mark West, and it's a nonprofit community organization, gallery, and creative hub for artists in the South Bronx. They are Black-owned and cater primarily to Black, Brown, LGBTQ, disabled, and young K-12 artists and creatives. They're a gallery and artist collective that hosts monthly art exhibitions, free grant writing workshops. Oh, artists need that so much, especially. Open mic competitions, art classes, and town hall meetings. As one of the only Black-owned and queer-owned galleries in New York City, and one of only 5 galleries in the entire Bronx, their mission is providing exposure and advocacy for underrepresented artists from all backgrounds. How incredible is that? Welcome, Mark West. I am so glad that you are here.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. So let's just go ahead and jump in. And I always like to go back to the beginning. What got you started? What inspired you to try art? You do a lot of different things, of course, but what came first, and how did it blossom into who you are and to what you do now?
Well, it really started with, I think it started as a child. I did paint a little bit as a child. Nothing very serious, just for fun. It was, part of just my passion, and would be a way for me to give gifts to my family members without buying them anything. And I really enjoyed it, pushed it aside during college, never considered myself being an artist at all. I went to college abroad at NYU Shanghai, and I studied a lot of business and economics and history and culture, art, studied art history in Paris, and also studied West African art and culture in West Africa, in Ghana. And when I was graduating college, I got accepted to my my dream master's program at London School of Economics. But I still felt that I had something more to offer, even though they told me I could go there. I still felt like my heart felt that I wasn't just supposed to go and leave China and then jump into this other program. I wanted to try and make something of my own. On my own, and I felt like there was a little bit more for me than to just go to master's to school. So I stayed in New York. I deferred my admission for a year, trying to find something interesting to do. That year passed. Didn't find anything interesting, but I still felt that I had something more to offer than to just go and get my master's degree. I went through a series of jobs, kept getting fired from all these jobs. It would be job after job after job. Wasn't doing well in New York City and was going to go back to China because I was doing well in China. And this was the time right before I was actually going to go back to China. I found a job in finance, and I decided to stay a little bit, and save up some money. During that weekend, prior to that, I started painting, and I was walking by 14th Street, and I saw people just were out there with their artwork and selling their paintings. So I asked some of the people there, can I bring my art out here? Am I allowed to put my art out on 14th Street? And they said, yeah, absolutely, just bring it out. So I this was the first weekend where I was going to start my job. I called my grandma and told her, I just got a good job in finance. I might need to borrow some money because it's going to take a while for me to get my paychecks, but I have all these paintings I've been working on. Possibly I could make some sale and I won't have to ask you for any money. And she was like, oh, yeah, all right. Because I've been hitting her up for money, while I was in New York. But I still went out there with my paintings. And my first weekend, I sold 2 paintings. And I was very happy.
Yeah.
I called my grandma back and was like, I don't need to borrow money from you anymore. But I went that week. This was the week when I first started my finance job, and I made I made more paintings. And as soon as I got home from my job, I would rush to get home and to paint more, because I said, well, if I made 2 sales my first weekend, maybe I'll make more. The second weekend that I went out there, I sold 9 paintings, and I made my entire rent within a few hours. And
incredible.
At that moment, it was extremely clear that I never have to work for a job again in my life. God gave me everything in my own hands. It's just a matter of me learning how to develop these skills so that I don't have to work a cubicle job. Because if I can pay my rent in a couple hours, I never have to listen to another person for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really just been a matter of, replicating that. And sometimes, God will give you just a little taste of your future. And it was like when I was in the job, my finance job, I would get little taste of my future and where I was supposed to go. And I just made the decision that I was going to save my money and try to open my own gallery. I had taken my art around New York City to different galleries and asked people to see it. No one took me seriously. And I said, while I'm making my artwork, let me try to open my gallery. It honestly started as a place where I could paint, and because I had got tired of painting on my bed,
Mm-hmm.
and paint all over my room. But then it grew. And as soon as we opened it up, we saw what the space could really be used for when there were so many artists and creatives just filling the space. That was not our intention to build the community center at the beginning. I didn't even know that was possible. It just grew into that. And it happened to just get bigger and bigger, and there were lots of challenges too, especially at the beginning, just even having to learn how to do it. I mean, I created this gallery, tried doing our events, tried having solo exhibitions. No one would come. Had many chances where I would try to promote my art, and this was in the first gallery. No one would come, and what I had to learn was that the secret to our success is that we elevate ourselves by elevating people. If you're an artist out there, which is what 99% of painters do, they run around and they want the world to see their paintings. Look at me, look at what I can create. And honestly, in the city with so many artists, no one really cares, about someone that's promoting themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But once we realized that, we could use this as a platform to help other people, we realized that we can help ourselves by also helping other people and providing opportunities to other people. And the more people we helped, the bigger the organization grew. It was directly related to that. Mm-hmm. So, the mission shifted from, promoting myself to helping as many people as possible. And that's what's really, we really can help more people. We can help ourselves by helping more people.
Sure, absolutely. And there's an old saying, a rising tide lifts all boats, so by helping these other people, you also do help yourself, and you're able to create a real community, it sounds like, around art in the Bronx, which I think is incredible. That I read that there are only 5 galleries in all of the Bronx. You're one of 5?
Yeah. And, there are some, galleries, a lot of them aren't even doing anything. We're probably one of the most active
Hmm.
here in the entire Bronx.
Wow.
Every month we're doing stuff, and we're not just active in the Bronx, we're actually Bronx and Brooklyn based. And we're going to be expanding to Brooklyn. Part of what we realized was that there was no really art center that catered to people of color, LGBT and disabled artists in New York City, period.
Mm.
This was something that did not exist in all of New York City, period. It's
Wow.
not just the Bronx. And we know this to be true because even when we opened our first gallery in Long Island City, we had people coming from and even now we have people coming from Staten Island, from East New York, from all of the boroughs, and even Jersey, just to come and see this Black-owned gallery. So it really wasn't something that we were creating for the Bronx. This is really more for New York City, because really, with a city of so many artists here, there lacks opportunities for people of color, and it's still a very racist and whitewashed industry. So just to have a Black-owned gallery in New York City um, is revolutionary, not just in the Bronx, but just here, period, because there aren't that many Black-owned opportunities, and the ones that are Black-owned are always in the outskirts. They're always like far away from everywhere else. We're right up in the hub. So there's not really been opportunities that were accessible, um, or that were Black-owned, or that were just safe spaces, and that's something that we really tried to create.
It sounds like you're succeeding, which is it's such a necessary part of living in New York City, I think, and anywhere, having that kind of representation is crucial. And so
Mhm.
the fact that you're doing it, and then these voices are traditionally way underrepresented everywhere. So can you talk a little bit? You said something about that the industry of art is predominantly white, and it's a racist industry. I'd love to get a little bit more on what your thoughts are on that, and what you think, how can we improve it? Like, what can we do to improve the representation of Black people, brown people, LGBTQ, disabled, young artists and creatives? What can we be doing? What can we, in the New York City community, but also in the greater world community, what can we be doing to make things better? So I know that's a long, big question, and I'm happy to break it down into a couple of different questions if you want.
One of the major things that I've had that's held me back was stereotypes and perceptions. And this is something that comes not just from white people, but also Black people. It comes from all types of people. Many times I've tried to promote my company, and time after time, people don't take it seriously. They don't take it seriously because it's just a Black gallery. They don't take it seriously because it's in the South Bronx. They don't take it seriously because I'm very young. So there's a lot of perceptions of what it actually is, and sometimes they don't match up. And even getting help from other Black people who are in the art industry, that's also very difficult. I hate to say this though, but there's a lot of jealousy amongst some of the other Black people that are in the art industry that I do know, and it seems as though they'll help everyone else, but they won't help me. And right now, the country's really shifting, and we have a lot of white businesses, white people trying to do whatever they can to make sure that Black companies succeed, because of how just the country is changing. And a lot of that support won't come from Black people. Won't come from Black men in the industry. When I promoted my gallery to people, people of color that are in the field, that are at the art institutions, that are at the art galleries, they're very skeptical. Even that I have a gallery, I remember telling one gallery owner that I had a gallery, and he asked me, what did he ask me? He was like, "Oh, is it in your apartment?" And it's like, if I was a white person with this space, you wouldn't be questioning if it was in my apartment. You just assume I have a brick and mortar. Or
Mm-hmm.
to the Black artists that I want to try to help out and promote, they've questioned my credibility, questioning if they should even bring the art here. You know, if we actually sell. I've been asked that many times. Even though I have a gallery, do you actually sell art? And I want to tell those people, no, we just put up art, and that's how we pay the rent. We don't sell any paintings at our art shows. But it's just so many perceptions. So I would have to say to people to be open-minded and to be willing to help others. I do get a lot of support from Black women. Black women are the most supportive, not just in my family, but out there in the world. If I get some support, the Black woman is going to come through and support. So I would say that there's a lot of things with race. Sometimes, racism doesn't always come from white people. Sometimes it comes from your own people, where they doubt your ability to do what you say that you do, or they question it, or they can choose to help you, but they choose not to, because there's jealousy. The art world has a lot of jealousy in it, and if you're young and Black, you're not supposed to be able to do what I'm supposed to do.
Oh, I need to understand this better. I'm sorry. Okay. So what is the root of the jealousy you're talking about? The fact that you're young, the fact that you're a person of color, the fact what do you think is the cause, the root cause of the jealousy you're talking about?
I think it has to do partly with color, but a lot with age. Honestly, there's a lot of age discrimination in the art world. Seniority plays a big part. How long you've been in the game, and I've had to try so hard to distinguish myself from let's say some of these what's the word I'm looking for? From some of these I hate to say it, artist collective pop-up events, and I've had to differentiate myself as, no, I am an actual gallery. We don't just have these little pop-up events. I have a brick and mortar. There is programming here. We have a mental health component. We're very socially active. These are things that I'm not supposed to be able to do these type of things.
What do you mean by supposed to be able to? I don't understand. I mean, you are doing them. So according to whom that you are not supposed to be able to be doing them?
I think it's according to society.
Oh,
Not
wow.
everybody thinks the same way. Some people are very happy, when I tell them, and they believe everything that I say. But some people, and this is something I've experienced more often than not, some people don't believe what I say that I do. They honestly do not believe that I have a gallery, and some people wouldn't believe all the things that we're doing here. I'm always promoting my company. I tell people to come to the Bronx. They don't want to come to the Bronx. And sometimes when I say that it's in the Bronx, they don't take it seriously.
It's just,
I'm answering that question for you. But I think really that's what it comes from. A lot of times it's age.
okay.
I'm very organized. I have a whole team of people. I feel that if possibly I was a little bit older, or if I was white, they might take it seriously. But people are changing their perceptions about the Bronx every single day, especially every time that we have our events here. People are always saying that this was here, or I would have never thought that this was here. And that shows that they had that perspective, and they had to unlearn that perspective.
you know, it's not just unlearning it, it's opening their eyes. You know, sometimes we just get stuck in our own little world and don't see what's right in front of us, because you're obviously doing it, you know. And so what is your I think you've already answered this, but what is your mission for the gallery? What is it that you want to achieve? And secondly, because the groups that you're primarily serving are so underserved, generally speaking,
Yeah.
how might other people who aren't in the Bronx or aren't members of the groups you serve support the people you're serving? Like, what I understand, probably the answer is come over and buy the art. I get that, but you know, but if you're in California or in your Iowa or whatever, what can you do?
They can still buy the art.
All right.
So we can still buy that art though, but I think that ways that they can support, one, they can donate to the gallery. It's a nonprofit.
Okay, I didn't know that. Great.
So they can definitely donate to our gallery and support our artists. We always have different drives and stuff that we're doing for the community, and the funds always go towards our gallery and creating more programming. What I think that they can do is what will help me and my artists thrive, and this is more of a general, is to change the perspectives around art. A lot of the art that's taken seriously is not Black art. You can go to most of the galleries around New York City. That's the art that's being shown. Yet there are so many Black artists. So I would say that support the local artists in your community, and support your Black businesses, because that indirectly helps me. When other people, when the country as a whole is more open and breaks down a lot of those barriers that hold them back from supporting that Black business, that indirectly helps me, and it helps my business thrive.
Okay. That, again, we come back to that, a rising tide lifts all boats, you know. That's actually lovely to see it in action in that way. You mentioned your own art, and I've seen some of your pieces. I stalked your Instagram feed and was like, "Ooh, this is so cool!" And they're really evocative. Can you talk about what you want your art to say to both the collector and sort of the novice appreciator alike? What is your mission? What is your vision as an artist?
So my vision as an art goes back to what we want to do at the gallery, and that's take up space, claim space. Mm-hmm. And this is a major issue, with America as a whole, not just with paintings, but just with our whole infrastructure and how society is built. We don't take up enough space, and to take up space is to be political, is revolutionary. So with my art, it's about Black people taking up space on the canvas, putting Black skin on the wall. I use a lot of images that they look like blackface images. And part of why I do that is because blackface is actually inspired by African art. And like a lot of aspects in American culture, our history has changed a little bit. And because white people have the dominating voice in our country, it's their narrative that sticks. Mm-hmm. However, blackface is something that was originally created by and inspired from African art, and those images extend all the way back to ancient Kemet. Those are very old images.
Ancient what now? I'm sorry, could you say it again? They extend back to ancient
Kemet.
Kemet. Oh, I've never heard of that word. What is that?
It's so Kemet is a place. It's by modern day Egypt. Uh-huh. And it's an older kingdom that's on the northeastern coast of Africa. And it's it's actually in ancient Kemet they have pyramids, and those images are inspired by images that go back to ancient Kemet and ancient Egypt. Those images are also present in voodoo culture and in voodoo art that has existed before blackface was pushed out in the late 18th and 19th century. So there were already, these images already existed, and they were created by people of color, but they were used to demean us. So I take these images and I put them in scenes which uplift Black people. So I may paint Black people in scenes from the Bible, or paint Black people as gods, or paint Black people as very, powerful beings, as a way to subvert the original meaning, where it was once used to put down Black people. And one thing about my art is that it's one of the few examples of Black privilege, because there's not many things in this country that a Black man can do and get money from that a white person cannot do. So this is me exerting my privilege, me having the right to talk about race in this dynamic. That's something that I have a right as a Black man. When I do it, it's okay. So it's, so there's that aspect of it that's political. But really it's about uncovering certain aspects of history that we were incorrectly taught. Another example is the image of the Black man eating the watermelon. That has a lot of racist connotation in American history. But that was because after slavery, Black people, once they were free, a lot of them went to sell watermelons. And that was a way that the freed slaves would gain their independence. And that started a lot of the first Black businesses. They were watermelon businesses after slavery. So white people decided to make all this racist imagery of Black people eating watermelon so that Black people would hate that image and would not go into this field. So the same thing is similar with blackface. Sometimes images are created to convince the Black man to hate what they see, such as the jet black skin. We were trained to hate that image, and that was strategic, but I find beauty in it, and I want to expose it. Each piece that I have, there's a story behind it. There's a reason I'm painting it. There's a message. I don't just paint bowls of fruit or legs or anything like that. There's a message behind each and every one of my pieces, and I'm there to tell stories that aren't told.
So you're telling stories that aren't told, and it seems like it's a reclamation of sorts.
Absolutely, that's the exact word. It's a reclamation. Yep, that's exactly what it's called.
Okay, so here's a little bit about me. You're very young, so you probably never saw liner notes from a CD, but I am the kind of person who will read all the lyrics and I'll find out who the person working the board was if I get an album. I want to know everything about it. So when you create these images, these art pieces, do you also write sort of the explanation, or is it something that you're leaving for the people who buy the art or just the people who view the art to glean from what you're doing?
I prefer not to explain my pieces because I feel like if I have to explain it, that means I didn't do it right. I don't expect everyone to get my pieces, but I do expect some people to get exactly why I'm painting this image. And it's important for me to make sure that to make sure that the image is clear enough to where if you read it, you can get something, you can get something from it. But I personally don't like to just to give it away. I mean, I make the image to make you think. I want you to think about what's going on. I want you to have certain feelings about it. I have this one image, and it's done in like the American Gothic style, and it's this painting of like these two Black people. They're painted like the farmers in the famous painting, and it's actually a murder scene where the farmers are holding a pitchfork, and there's a murder in the background, and it's a lot of people have a lot of questions about that piece, and it's caused lots of controversy, especially in the street. I put my art in the public, and you have blackface art. A lot of people have opinions on it. I've learned that from just putting my art there and being quiet. There are some people who see my work as very, very powerful, and other people who are just so angry at it. They're completely confused at what I'm doing. The artist, I feel like good art is supposed to make people have something to talk about. It should cause a discussion. There should be some sort of discourse. I don't want to just give my paintings away. That's why I paint them.
Well, I mean, it's definitely, it's causing conversation, but it's also, it sounds to me like your art, that part of the intent that you have for your art, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to give people who are viewing it a reaction, is to have them react somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't believe in art that you see it and you just think it looks pretty. That's bullshit art to me. Honestly, art is supposed to make you feel something, and you should feel something from looking at that painting. You should be transported into another place, or you should imagine a different scene. I do these works to, one, it's for my people. When I paint the jet black skin, it's to represent the beauty of the Black skin, and it's to represent Black people with no slave blood in them. If the skin is jet black, then that means there's absence of white. So all of my people in my paintings, these are the original people. These are the people that have no dilution, anything. These are purely Black people, and I'm painting them on the canvas, and people are never painted this Black on the canvas. The people cannot be Blacker than mine. I'm sorry if I went on a tangent, but
no, not at all, not at all. Remember when right before we started recording, I said where the conversation goes is where it goes. This is not a tangent. This is an evolution, and that works great for me.
So there's the intention that when Black people see my images, they're happy that there's a Black person taking up space. I've been to so many art shows where it's not just Black art and the style of Black art, but just the subject matter. There's so many paintings that just don't touch any serious subject matter, and like you could paint just a person just standing there, a woman standing there, but those things aren't interesting to me. What is she doing in that picture? I want a story behind it. I want to ask questions about the piece. So that's also my intention.
So I have a bizarre question for you then. You mentioned something just a little while ago that because you're a person of color, that it's okay for you to paint these images. And when people view them and are uncomfortable, what happens to their reactions when they find out that you are a person of color?
Sometimes there's an immediate sigh of relief, like, oh, someone Black did this, so that makes it okay. That's how some people feel. I've also had some people that see it and they know that a person of color did it, because they know that white people don't have that much soul, and they can't put that much feeling or juiciness into that painting. It's not about my images are not about, he's so talented in that he did that face so perfect, or that he did the skin tone, or he did the shadow. It's not so much about the raw talent or the skill. It's more about the soul or the feeling that I put into it. And some people automatically can tell that a Black person made those paintings, and they would never think that anyone else made those paintings. And then some people, I put the art out there and they see the Blackface and they're incapable of hearing my point of view. And I can sometimes tell those type of people, because I'll be putting the work up there and they're already mad at seeing it. You know, before they even look at my images, they're calling it racist. And it's like, well, did you look at my images? Or did you just focus on the Black skin? And if you did, why do you just focus on the Black skin? You know, that's part of why I'm making these images, for that person to question that. Why is it that you just see the Blackness, you don't see the seam? That's also part of that intention. And to those people, sometimes you can't educate them. Sometimes they've made up their mind and they have their opinion about the art, and you cannot tell them anything about it. And I've learned to not try to teach those people. But most people, when they see it, and I explain to them a little bit about the history behind it, and that, you know, these images were created with the intention for us to hate Blackness, then they immediately get what I'm doing, and they think it's beautiful. I think, you know, now most Black people really support. Black people have always supported my Blackface paintings, but now that the message is out a little bit further, you know, I have a lot more support from it.
And that support translates to more visits to the gallery, more paintings purchased. What is the support? Or is it more like, you know, sort of, yay, we're rooting for you? What is the support that you're getting from the people who are supporting your art the way you make it?
The support that I'm getting is, you know, purchasing the painting. I've had a lot of people buy my paintings. I've been selling artwork for about 1.5 years. I've sold between 150 to 160 paintings. Mm-hmm. So I've got sold a lot of these paintings. And I guess that's what you said. People purchasing the paintings, you know, that does support. People coming to the gallery, that also does support. When people are coming from East New York to come to our exhibitions, no, they may not buy a painting, but they traveled at least an hour to get here. Mm-hmm. That's support to me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And all of that, you know, it all goes back to helping keep the organization up and keep the mission alive. When people buy my paintings, that money goes back into the company. You know, all of my money goes into keeping this organization up so we can offer these services. So whether they purchase my paintings, whether they get tickets to an exhibition, or whether they make donations, all of this helps go back and support the mission of Black people taking up space.
That's a great message.
But not just Black people, the disabled people also taking up space, or LGBTQ people also taking up space. All of these people need an opportunity to be seen and heard. And in New York City, there aren't many options, you know, even still. Otherwise, people wouldn't be coming so far to the Bronx to get this. If these opportunities were there, they don't exist.
So it seems to me like you are wearing a lot of hats. You're trying to sell your own work, create and sell your own work. You're trying to provide a space for people of color, LGBTQ, disabled artists, young artists. You're wearing a lot of hats. And I think artists in general have to wear a lot of hats. You know, an artist can't just be an artist. An artist has to be a marketer and a business person and a publicist and a social media manager and an accountant. And you seem to be wearing all of these different hats. Can you talk about those hats that you're wearing, and what are they, and how do you balance all of them and still find time to make art?
I was just explaining this to our artistic director, Brandon Smith.
I love Brandon. Yeah. Brandon's great.
Brandon is great. There are so many artists and talented artists that come in and out the gallery, and some of them are so much more talented than I am. I've seen some of the stuff they've painted hanging on the wall, and I could never paint that way. And even though they may be more talented than I, they may have more skill, they may have went to art school and can nail that face. it's not always about the talent. I believe that to be talented, is to be common. It's the dime a dozen. Talent is so widespread, and people who are really talented. There's so many great artists, great painters, great musicians. I believe that God gave everyone talent and gave everyone immense talent. But it's not just talent. That's not enough, because even though there's so many talented artists that come in here, some of them more talented than I, they haven't sold them paintings. Mm-hmm. And I look at their work and I'm just like, you're so talented, but they lack a lot of the other components that's necessary. People, they don't just buy your art because they like it. They buy the art because they like the artist, and they like the life of the artist and what the artist is doing with their life. For me, I'm all in. I've devoted my life to this, and I've made certain decisions to where I've decided that this is my purpose, and I'm going to fall full into this. And I think that, part of what makes my art sell is that the collectors can see that I'm very serious about this. It's not just about me painting, it's about me trying to use my art to change the world. And that sort of mindset is necessary, not just being a painter, but also being an activist. You can't just, it's almost like if you're blessed with the ability to create stories or to create stories or write poetry or whatever the case is, or to paint, you, in my opinion, you have the duty to use your skill for something. And to be an artist and a successful artist, you can't just be the painter. You've also got to think about how you can use your art to benefit society, getting involved, and organizing people, bringing people together. Art is connected with humanity, is connected with culture. All of these things, all these ideas are intersected in the art world. And to be a successful artist, you've got to be involved in the world. You can't just be in your studio painting. That's not good enough. There's so many artists that are in their studio painting, but they're not out there in the world. And that's not good enough. You have to be out there. I put my art in the streets. I go to 14th Street, Union Square, it's the center of New York City, and I not just have to be the painter, but I also got to be a public figure, because I'm out in the public and I'm talking to people all day about my work. And that these are some of the skills that to be successful, you got to be all well-rounded in the studio and outside the studio. Being a part of the community, making your art a part of the community, and taking up space. So these are all the things that I have to do, on the day-to-day. I also have this community cultural center, and this gallery, and part of that was because people never wanted to just come and view my art, or I would try to make appointments and for people to come and see it, and they wouldn't see it. They wouldn't come. But if you have your own gallery and you call other galleries, they'll come and check your gallery out. And they might actually say, add me on the email blast, because you're a gallery owner to another gallery owner. But if you're an artist to a gallery owner, they may not even respond to you or take you seriously. So you really have to be more than just a painter. Paint, you could be a painter, but that doesn't make you an artist. You can literally paint a painting, but to be an artist is to be a lot more than just someone that paints a painting. It involves in a higher level of involvement.
Okay, so let's take that. Let's take that to the next generation and the generation after that. How do we help artists coming up? A few weeks ago, I had two artists, and they're both artists and art educators. One teaches elementary school, and one teaches at a university. And we talked about how we can make art anywhere. It can be a few sticks and some soil. You can make art out of that if you want. So what how do artists begin? What can an artist do, particularly let's artists of color or underrepresented artists, LGBTQ artists? What should their first steps be to becoming not just a painter, but an artist? What are the first steps for them to take, according to you?
Well, first, I think there's technical things to this. Okay, you need to be a technically great artist, and what I mean by that is the materials that you're using in your piece. Aiming for high quality. If you want people to take your work very seriously, that means you need to invest seriously in your craft. Mm-hmm. And that means buying the best canvas, getting the best paint, making sure that if you show your work, it's in the best condition, because there's already that stigma of you being a Black painter. So you need to make sure that your work is in the best condition. And two, for technical, I would also say making sure that you have an iconic style of painting, meaning people should be able to tell that that's your artwork without reading the signature. If I see a painting and I don't know who did that painting, that means that artist didn't do a good job, because I should be able to they should be putting individualistic characteristic into their pieces to show that they're the people who did it. What's the point of making something that the person next door to you could make as well? That's a waste of energy. Make something that only you can make, and be known for that, and have your style. Or if you sing, and if you're a musician, or if you do dance, develop your own unique style that's characteristic of yourself, to where when people see how you move, they know that you're that dancer. Or when they see that work from a distance, when I see good work that's done by artists of color, like I can see that they have their trademark, their signature in it, and that's what makes it good. Now, pushing that aside, I would have to say that putting your art out to the public and learning what the reaction is. We may have our own perception of our art, but that's not just what our art is, because the art outlives the artist. It's also about how that art is received. That's a huge portion of it. So when I put my art in 14th Street, in 1 hour, I can have 1,000 or 2,000 people that walk past my artwork. And if I'm out there for 8 hours, then there are thousands of people who see my work and give me comments off of it, and stop me and ask me questions and tell me what they think. I have the benefit to get that exposure. And also in New York City, there are people who are curators and gallery owners and other artists that are walking past my art and telling me what they think. And that's because I put my art out there. So if you want people to know your art, they have to see your art. It's not just about putting your picture on the Instagram. You've got to put your art in front of people. The truest definition of an exhibition is in public. It's when we think of the artists like Picasso, who's sold his work under highways. He put his work not only in the galleries but also in the public for the people to see. So to exhibit your work really means putting it out there. And what that does is that teaches you what you'll quickly see. If you got 10 paintings out there, some of your paintings are going to get more attention than other one of your paintings. Mm-hmm. And some of your paintings, no one's going to look at. So if you're conscious and you're critical, you'll see, wow, everyone really, really liked this painting. Like I painted this portrait of Frida Kahlo, and I was painting it live, and I've painted live before, but when I was painting Frida, I had so many people comment off of it, and even little kids were commenting that it was Frida. And I realized that wow, Frida Kahlo is very, very known, especially in New York City. And that's like if I paint something of her, people are gonna make comments about it. Mm-hmm. Or if I paint in a certain style, learning that, wow, everyone is making comments off this type of paintings. I need to sell this painting high because this painting is drawing their attention. And then I may up the price a little bit more on that painting. Mm-hmm. Or it may be art that I may have put out there, but I don't really get any interaction, and then I go home and then I fix the painting, and when I put it back out there, then people are talking about that painting. Sometimes I'll put it out there, I'll get no interactions, I'll say, you know what, this painting isn't finished, I'm going home and finishing it more, and then when I put it out there, I'll sell it at that time. That's because I put my work out in the street, and I paid attention to the feedback. So it's really about listening to what the people are telling you about your art and showing it to the people. And you cannot rely on any person to do this for you. They won't do it for you. You've got to put it in front of the people yourself at the beginning. And you got to be willing to be out there for the 8 hours. Mm-hmm. When I first started putting my art on those streets, I would be out there 8-10 hours. Mm-hmm. But I was learning, and I had to treat it like it was a job. And I knew that I couldn't go out there for 3 hours and then get mad because no one bought a painting. I had to treat it like work. Just like I go to work and I get paid for that, you know, at an hourly job, I had to treat it like it was an actual job. Mm-hmm. Getting up early, preparing my work the day before, going out in those streets and you know, and being serious about it. And for myself, when I treat it like it's a job, I usually can sell a lot of paintings. My energy is different. Mm-hmm. But I've had days where I just, you know, I'll have the same artwork and I'll just be doing it half-assed, and I know I'm not gonna sell any work that day.
So your intention sounds like it's a big part of that equation.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You have to be intending like this is work. When I'm in those streets, like my mindset is like I'm in my finance job, like I'm getting paid to be out here. Because you'll like for myself, I always get blessed by it if I put in the hours. It's just I don't know when it's gonna come. So I may go take a painting out there and be out there I may bring my art out there, be out there all day for 10 hours, not make any money, but I've talked to so many people in those hours. Mm-hmm. And a week later, someone that I met while out there might come and say, hey, I remember, do you still have that painting? I saw it in the street. And that money may actually come a week later. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes it may come 2 weeks later, or I remember I was out there with my artwork, and I met this reporter, and next thing you know, my art was on the news a few weeks later. So it you know, sometimes you don't know who you'll meet. You don't know who is out there. You cannot have any sort of expectations. And you don't know how much money people may have either. You may see someone, this is also a big thing too. I've had sometimes young people look at my art, and in my head, I'm like, oh, that person's not gonna buy a painting. They can't afford my art. And then they pulling out their card to purchase my art at the price that I told them. And so sometimes you know, there's these perceptions that, oh, if that person is white, they're gonna have that money. Or if that person is older, you know, then that age, they may have more money, but sometimes that's actually not the case. And a lot of my highest price work has been to Black collectors. I've been paid most and been highest paid by my Black collectors than my white collectors. And that's something that a lot of artists won't believe. In fact, I've had more white people offer me disrespectful amounts for my art. You know, art and they may love it, but I'm like, why are you offering me this? Don't you know I have a gallery? And I've been offered high amounts by Black people. Mm-hmm. So, you know, there's a perception that, you know, that if I go to an exhibition, especially at my gallery, that there are people of color that, oh, no one's gonna buy your painting. But what I tell these artists is that if that person works in New York City and they bring in at least 40 or 50 or 60 or however much $1,000, they can afford your $5,000 or $1,000 painting. They can afford to say, here's $200 now, I'm putting the deposit down. Let me get that painting. Most people in New York City, Black or white, can put that money down, or can afford it just because of the income you make in the city.
Well, and
know.
also, I mean, it seems to me like the art is, if it affects them, you know, if it speaks to them somehow, then it becomes important to have, you
Mhm.
know, and if it's important to you, you're going to make it a priority. And even if you can't afford to buy the painting right this second, you
Oh
know,
yeah, that is the thing. And I tell artists, don't be afraid of leeway. Sometimes and these are the things that if you're an emerging artist, you have to be able to talk about it.
mhm.
Can you pay? Can you ask? Can you pay some down?
Hello?
500 down. Everyone's. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hello?
Uh, can you hear me?
Where'd you go? Hello?
Right here. I'm right here.
Oh, okay, I hear you
Can
again.
you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. You faded out for a second, and I'm like, oh, you were in the middle of a sentence, and all of a sudden, nothing. And I was like, something's going on. So I'm sorry. Could you repeat the very last? You say to artists that if they're an emerging artist, this is the last thing I heard, that they have to be willing to do things like layaway, and
To,
then.
to do things like layaway because you're saying you want to sell. You're saying you made this work of art for $3,000, and you want someone to like it. Well, guess what? Someone may not have $3,000 to give you. They may have $500 that they can spend right now. You take
Mhm,
that damn money and you make them sign a contract that they're gonna make payments on the rest of that painting.
mhm,
And you have to be willing to work with people because if someone is willing to spend all this money on your artwork, that means you move them. You should be flattered. So we can't be hardballs on this. I work with my collectors, and sometimes I get paid outright, but for the average person, if you're trying to sell work that's over $1,000, you know some people are going to pay you outright, some people can pay you half, and some people can only give you that 100 now, but you'll be happy each month when you get that $100.
sure.
You'll be happy. You're not going to be upset. um,
No, no, not if you're getting that $100 every month until they pay it off. So this is something that I wanted to ask you, and coincidentally, it's something that you said that you wanted to talk about. I had an author on my show just a few weeks ago who's also an English teacher, and he made the point that literature is about the human condition. And I've been thinking a lot that music is the universal language. What do you think art's role in society is, in the world? How does art affect society, and how can art affect the individual person? And more importantly, what does someone need to know or do to view art and or to appreciate it?
hmm, okay. Oh wow, these are excellent questions. Um, hmm. I think that what's different was what, art, and I'm going to refer to visual art.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like art and poetry are cousins. Artists and poets and musicians, we're all cousins in how we capture that moment and we tell a story, and whether it's visually or auditorily or something that we just experience. So we're all telling stories in there, but what makes art different is that art lasts a lot longer. And art is something that's been around for thousands and thousands of years that you can still see.
Hmm.
Yes, music and poetry's also been around, but seeing a painting that was painted 500 years ago of how life was, paintings they last. The visual art, pottery can last.
Hmm.
You can actually really see something, how history was.
Hmm.
And to me, art is, with my pieces, I'm rewriting history, because you may not view it as like, I tell stories in my pieces. You may not view them as history now,
Hmm.
but 500 years from now, it'll be viewed as history. If I make it,
Hmm.
if my art makes it, and people know about my art, and it becomes, taken up by society. The goal is for society to take my art away from me. That's really what the goal is. Um, and once, if society decides to take my art and make it a permanent part of history, 500 1,000 years from now, all of my paintings are historical artifacts. and they're used to tell stories, and it doesn't actually matter how I paint them. You know, it just the time in itself. They become what we look at to see the past. How we look at the past. So I hope I think I answered that first question.
I know it's you did, and I threw a lot of questions at you. So then what do we need to know in order to be able to view and or appreciate art? What do we need to know? What are the things, not in a historical or particularly in a far-flung 1,000 years from now future perspective, but right now, someone who is new to appreciating art, what do they need to know to be able to do it?
I think that this might be, unpopular opinion. Not all art can be appreciated. So sometimes as an artist, I see art and I'm looking at it, and I'm a very empathetic person, and I study art all the time. And a lot of times I can feel what that artist's intention was or what they did. But some pieces, I don't know what the artist did, and I question if there was anything in it. I'm being honest. So in some cases, you can't appreciate that art because they didn't put much there for you to appreciate. That artist put a dot in the middle of a canvas.
Yes, Barnett Newman. I hate Barnett Newman. I said it.
Whatever the case is, or they do something with a banana, or they do some splatter on it. You may not understand what they painted. But for art that does have stories, it's just not really something that I feel you can learn to appreciate art. It's just if there is something there to appreciate, it will speak to you. It's kind of like, you don't have to be from a culture where you've heard opera before, or any type of music that's really done well, even traditional folk music, from all over the place. You don't have to be from the culture or know anything about it, but if it's executed well, you can at least feel it. There's so many types of music in so many places that I haven't been there, but I guarantee you, if I were to listen to what they considered to be their best music, I would still be able to appreciate it. Good art and good music, it touches the human, and you don't have to try hard. It just is supposed to move you. And some people, they can't be moved naturally by the art. I would say that they're not moved by a lot of other things. Not everybody is going to see something and that's going to affect their emotions. And me, I'm someone that does get affected by things. I could see a face and I could really, I can appreciate that face, or I can see a tree and I can appreciate that tree and that can bring me joy. But some people just see the tree and they don't see that. And that's not something. And if you're that person, I can't say nothing to you.
Yeah. Well, so
I don't think you can learn to appreciate it. Just like with music, I don't think you can learn. You have to learn to appreciate good music. It just has to be good, and it will touch you.
But isn't there a real subjective, sort of qualitative idea of what's good? What's good to you might not be what's good to me. Like my husband likes certain bands, for example, that I'm like, nah. And if I were to, and I love opera, and if I were to go, honey, let's go to an opera, he would just basically fall asleep because it's just not his thing. The bands he likes are good bands. The opera I like is good opera, or jazz. I cannot take him to a jazz club. He falls asleep. And I love jazz, and he just can't appreciate it. Now, that does not say that the jazz is bad. It's just that it's not to his taste. Is there room for that in how you view this aspect of creativity?
I agree with you. I agree with you on that. Definitely on that point, definitely. But I will say that even if I'm not a big fan of that art piece, I can tell I'm able to appreciate if they executed it well. And and it's like I may not want to buy that painting and put that in my house, but I know that because that artist executed the hell out of that piece, that someone is going to appreciate it, even and put that. I can tell that, oh, that painting will sell, even if that's not my cup of tea, that artist, I can tell they executed it well.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's like sometimes you don't necessarily, it doesn't have to be your cup of tea to tell when people nail it. And and your husband, he may not like opera, but if he heard someone who was one of the best opera singers in the entire world and was renowned, someone that, has reputation of bringing people to tears, I'm sure if he heard her versus all the other opera music, he would appreciate that she's very talented, even if he wouldn't go and generally appreciate opera.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I can see what you mean, absolutely. But to your point about execution being something that's very crucial to
Mm-hmm.
art. Let me ask you to pivot just a little bit. What about creative endeavors that aren't fine art, that aren't paintings, like somebody who's an illustrator or a graphic designer, but who's still creative, who's still artistic? Is it the same for you, that the execution of what they do is the most important thing? Or is there a distinction that you make between fine art and more sort of graphic design or almost corporate type of work that a creative might do?
I don't really make so much the distinction between I would say the different types of art and
Mm-hmm.
fine art, and I don't even really like that term.
Okay, great.
As much, just because the people who use the term, because of those people who use the term and how they use the term, I feel that term is problematic. But
do you have a different term that works?
I'll say gallery style work. I'll instead of fine art, I'll say gallery style work. And by gallery style work, I'll say that the artist, one, has years of skill, that led them to there. Regardless of what they paint, they do have years of skill. Two, the quality of the materials and the framing. The artist put $200 into the framing of the actual piece of work, not just putting the canvas on the wall. Mm-hmm. That's gallery style. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to say fine art, but I'll say like artwork that's professional for a gallery. The artist put the proper things into it. There's that. But going back to the original question, the biggest thing about it really is execution. Everything can be executed tastefully. Every single thing can be executed tastefully. Mm-hmm. And I'm someone that can appreciate the art in everything. Whether it's the art in how you did that PowerPoint, or the art in how you did your presentation, the little details, being very meticulous. This is something that, it just requires, you to turn on your brain a little bit and really be like, I'm going to try to do the best that I can do. And that's something that you can do this in any field, whether it's film or poetry. Taste is something like with sophistication, it comes from having experience and experiencing other things. That's what really makes the person sophisticated about their art. They have a wealth of background of culture behind them that's pushing forward their art. So I mean, yes, everyone can feel different about it, but I just feel that taste and that's something that's a bit kind of almost, I don't want to say universal, but I'm going to use that word universal. Even though universal taste may not be the same, taste is something that you can see in any sort of culture. Just like wealth may not look. Wealth here may look a little bit different than wealth in, let's say, Nigeria, or wealth in China, but But in some aspect, wealth is wealth, and being comfortable is being comfortable, even if it comes out a little bit different.
Fascinating. So let me ask you this. Talking about the world, talking about China, Nigeria, Argentina, wherever we're talking about, what are our next steps as creatives, as people who want to support creatives? Certainly, we're in unprecedented and long needed times with the Black Lives Matter movement. It's shaking the very ground. So to me, art and creativity play a significant role in how we move forward, because I think art and creative thinking and imagination show us the way forward. What are your thoughts on that? How do we move forward, and what does the future hold?
I think the future really depends, right now. Well, for one, each of us have different futures.
Mm-hmm.
There's really no such thing as the future, because, there are people, like, I'm in the South Bronx, right? Some of the people who live 4-minute walking from the gallery have a completely different world than me. And that's just because their conditions are completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So the world really is different to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
My world is different than your world. So so really our future depends. It depends individually. I would tell them to focus on self, and that and it may be the common thing to focus on the affairs of the world. And well, this is okay. So I got different messages for different people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? For Black people who who are constantly traumatized and scarred and always have something to be mad about, especially with the killing, the constant killing and everything. To them, I would tell them to not focus on the state of the world right now, and to focus on being excellent and Black excellence, and focusing on how you can be the best thing that you can be, and come here to do your purpose. Because that's how you're going to make your future better. You can't change how the future is for everybody in this world. You can't even affect how your neighbor is, because they're going to do what they want to do anyway. But you can control yourself. And I would tell them to put that energy off of the state of the world and focus it on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And to people who aren't traumatized and do have the energy to go through with that, and have privilege, I would tell them to share the power, share the opportunities, and speak up. And of oppression, speak up. If you see that someone is being harassed by police officers and they're a Black person, pull out your camera, because you're not going to get shot if you pull out your camera. That's what's going to make this world better. Not just sharing stuff on the Instagram, like actually like using the privilege, that we have. Just, and the same thing goes for me as a man. If there's a woman who's walking from the gallery late at night, walking her to the subway if it's deserted, because I got that privilege as a man, that people aren't going to come and try to harass me. So it's my job to use my privilege so that she doesn't feel dangerous if she's walking late at night. These are the things that, like, we all have to individually do to make the world a better place. It's not about changing the laws. I mean, part of it's about changing the laws, but it's really about changing ourselves. And each person doing that on an individual level, using their privilege to help other people. Me, I'm someone that has privilege with this gallery space, and I want to help as many people as possible. So it's just about, using our privilege to help people, no matter what they may look like, and all people, really being on the same page with this. I think that's really important. And as I was saying earlier, focusing on oneself, because individually, we can change our future. Not everybody feels the same way on the state of the country. Not every Black person feels the same way. And part of why we feel different is because of our place in society.
Mm-hmm.
So just focus on your place in society. Focus on if you had the power to do anything in this world, what would you be doing, and start doing that instead of activating from a space of, I can't do this, or I have this racism that's holding me back. I act as if that doesn't exist. Sometimes I forget that I'm a 6'3" Black man, and that's because I've had to unlearn those things that I've always been conscious about. So I would tell them the same thing. Act as if you don't have that barrier holding you back. And I think that will benefit them the most. And raising and them having a better life, and the world also being a better place.
I love that. I think that is brilliant. And I thank you for saying it. We have so much more we could talk about, but I know you have a life to get back to. So I am going to ask you one last question. And before I do, I want to thank you so much, Mark, for being here, for taking the time and giving me and my listeners the benefit of your wisdom as an artist, as a business person, as a gallery owner, and as a person on this planet. So I'm really grateful to you for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Absolutely. And you're welcome back anytime. I have this one question. It's a silly question, but it's a question I ask of everybody who comes on the show. And here it is. If you had an airplane that could skywrite something in the sky that the whole world would see, what would you say?
Ooh, that's a hard one.
I know. It's a tough one, but it's a good one. Because you can't skywrite all that much,
I know you can't skywrite that much. I would probably say, I would probably say, be kind, be gentle, and love your neighbor. And be kind because I feel people are not kind to themselves.
Mm.
And I feel that the world needs, just on an individual level, we need to remember that we have to be kind to ourselves and also be kind to other people. I would then be gentle, and just gentle in the way we treat the environment and the way we treat other people. There's so much brutality in this environment, and part of that's because of technology. People can't be gentle, and we're not gentle with this planet either. We destroy it. So that would be the reminder. And then to love everyone. I feel that if we were reminded that we need to love everyone all the time, then there might be less killing and less and less ego. If we love the person that we're talking to, that's something I have to learn. I'm working on learning is that loving someone that means being willing to check that ego, and having to activate from a space of, oh, we're talking about this not to get into an argument, but to create understanding,
mm-hmm.
and move to something. So that would be, how we solve our problems, to remember to love everybody, and to use that as the basis, not trying to win or to gain something from it, but just to try to love your neighbor. That's what I would write.
That's beautiful. I love it. It's funny. Just a few weeks ago, somebody turned around on me, one of my guests, and she said, Zolda, what would you say? And I had two possibilities. The first one was also be kind. And the second one was leave it better than you found it. And I'm like, that's it. That's, that's my, in two statements, that's what I believe. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Kindness, love, and being gentle with yourself and with others, that tenderness is so important, because I think we all wear armor, and that can be very, very challenging in the long run, because armor's heavy. So, again, Mark, I want to thank you so very much for joining me. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Oh, I'm excited. I actually have not been to your gallery, but as soon as we can start going places again, I'm gonna make the journey from Brooklyn. And I if you like what you're hearing,
what was this? Brooklyn too. So, in Williamsburg.
Oh, well, that's great. I'm in Bushwick, so that's perfect. So, and we haven't mentioned your social media, and I'm going to run through it real quickly. It's going to be on the show notes, but I want to make sure that we have it. Websites, houseofmarkwest.com. Instagram is House of Mark West. You should be seeing a theme here if you're listening to this. Facebook.com/House of Mark West. And then let's see, is there anything else? I think that's it. I think we've got all of the websites. And remember, House of Mark West Gallery and Center is a 501c3. So if you've got a little extra pocket change, you could go there. You could go online and get some art. You could support the artists, the people of color, artists of color, LGBTQ artists, disabled artists, and young artists. This is one of the only places, dare I say, in the country that is designed to help these artists shine and thrive. So this is amazing, sacred work, and we all need to be supporting it. If you like what you're hearing, please also review the podcast. Let me know what you're thinking. Comment. If there's an artist or a creative that you think I absolutely need to be interviewing, please let me know. Until then, and until next time, this is Isolde Trachtenberg, and I send you all of my love. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Today's episode was produced by Isolde Trachtenberg and is copyright 2020. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope. Until next time, this is Isolde Trachtenberg, and I send you all of my love.